Yeah, sit down, the clock's ticking. You actually stole 2 minutes from me. I'm going to want it back at the end of this. So I don't know about the rest of you, but my experience with this really actually started in food trucks in San Francisco when I started going to buy food at lunchtime and found these guys with these white things on the edges of their iPhones or their iPads, you know, and started transacting with these card swipers. This is probably 2.5, 3 years ago, you know, and I think that everybody now knows, what the process, the payments processing side of this is, but I think that the bigger event here is what's going to happen in terms of integrated point of sale systems based on these mobile devices. And so today we have an interesting panel of people who actually, walk across the spectrum of this space. So we have Patrick Gauthier, who's the head of product strategy for retail products at eBay, and Chuck Kimble, who's the head of strategic partnerships at Square, which everybody knows, and Leonard Speiser, who's the co-president of a company down in the startup down in the Valley that's focused on open POS systems. And so, in the interest of time, I think I'll dive right in. So, one of the things when we were talking about this is kind of what's the use case. I mean, one of the things that you see in the software business focused on SMBs is that lots and lots of people make lots of things that make a lot of sense when they're developing the software, but they don't actually wind up being relevant from a use case point of view, over the long term. And I'm interested in understanding from the panelists what they think the kind of long-term use case is going to be around small businesses in particular, small to medium-sized businesses we'll talk about right now, in the retail space in terms of, how they're going to use these tools, what they're going to mean to them, how they're going to integrate them into their daily operations. Patrick?
Well, first, payment matters when you're in a business, right? And we shouldn't forget that there still is a massive amount of payments in the US that is made in paper. Check and cash still is more or less about 40% of consumer payments. So there's plenty of opportunities to electronify that. And with it comes just greater velocity for small businesses. And the last place where you have a lot of paper payments are in small business, because historically the electronification was just out of reach. The devices were expensive, complex to deploy, an acquiring merchant relationship was sometimes not even available for smaller merchants given underwriting policies. So the first thing is just to enable the taxi driver, the food truck, the plumber, on all of these micro merchants to really get access to electronic payment, because electronic payment are now the majority of what consumers do and the expected form of payment. Longer term, it's about twofold. First, knowing more about your business. So at the point of payment, you're capturing tons of stuff, tons of data. What was bought, how it was paid, when, what. It's a great instant of capturing data that you can then use, whether it is for inventory management or whether it is to better market your business. It is also an opportunity to personalize the interaction. So the consumer, through an electronic interaction, starting just a moment ago, we were talking with location, an expression of interest in a location, opens door to experiences that were impossible before. Just very practical example, in France, we rolled out with McDonald's an experience where people order ahead on a mobile or on a website. And since nobody wants to eat a cold burger, that order is started when the person checks in to the restaurant, literally. And when they do that, by the way, they don't wait in line. What I find fascinating is that they don't even have to pick up. Their order is brought to their table, which, when you think of changing the McDonald's service, is fascinating. So as you electronify that payment, as you bring it to different points, you're able to let merchants manage their business better and also create new consumer experiences.
I'll just add a few things. I think that the small business owner really wants to customize that device and make it their own. So take existing hardware that they own, that they use for sending email, for playing music, and make that the central point of commerce. And really it's to make commerce almost disappear. So if you think of what small business owners want to do. They want to focus on making the best Japanese denim or the best cupcakes, whatever it is they make. And that commerce part, they want to just happen naturally. They want to be able to talk to their customer. They want to know their name. And they want the rest of it to just simply fade away into the background. And I think the customization part is something that they like. And I'll give an example also. Blue Bottle here happens to have a barista who's also an artist. So they took a register product and they created their own images. So when you walk into Blue Bottle now and you see their register on the counter, you replace something that was clunky and not at all theirs, and now you have something beautiful and elegant that just fits in with their aesthetic sense. And I think that focus on design and customization is something you'll see, and it's really happened for the first time in commerce, and it's really an exciting thing.
Yeah, I oftentimes look at all the new startups that come out, and you kind of look at it, you're trying to figure out which one's the big one, which one's going to be the exciting one, and a lot of times it comes down to something a little less sexy, something like economics. Let's take something like a PC versus a mainframe, or even your smartphone versus your PC. When you go up and down the street for the SMB market, if you're going to go walk into restaurants, retailers, services businesses, even where I am, I'm in Mountain View on Castro Street. If I walk up and down, there's about 50 businesses there. One has a tablet. All the rest still have PC-based point-of-sale systems, which they probably spent $30,000 to $40,000 on, from like a Micros, or old-school cash register and a terminal. When you think about those businesses who are largely at a counter, you say, well, do they need a tablet? They're not mobile. They're not walking around with that thing. Well, the tablet is really a massive change in economics. You take the tablet, you put it with the cloud, and you can give them all the power of a Micros or Radiant or Aloha system that they were spending tens of thousands of dollars on. You can give it to them at a cost of a terminal, right, of a $300, $400 terminal. And that is really where we see the big change happening, and it hasn't happened yet. And the way you know is just walk up and down the street and go into those businesses. And the other reason it hasn't happened is that those businesses have a lot of complexity. They want to run their business a very specific way. If you think about it, every one of those businesses is an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs like to do what they want to do. They think they know what's right, and sometimes they are wildly right. Sometimes it turns from a restaurant into Chipotle, right? But they want to guide their own path. And so when you're going to build a product for them, you need to give them that ability. You can't actually project and predict every feature that they want. You have to build it in a way that's going to allow them to pick and choose what they want, to plug in the way they want, and you can't do that with your own team. And that's always been the way in the business market, right? It's the difference between, in the early days, between the Mac and the Windows device. Windows was not nearly as beautiful, but man, if you were a business, you could do anything with that box, and Mac just made it so darn hard for a developer to build on that platform, and it showed in the market share in the future. And so that's where we see things going for the SMB market.
So let's kind of back our way into that same question in a slightly different way, because I mean, I think that one of the things that, you know, in the conversations I had with you guys before, as we were putting the panel together, that came out was that there is there are a number of kind of extended data use cases that are in the marketplace right now in terms of kind of like core data that you can aggregate from these devices, and show to your, to the SMB and help them figure out, kind of like, how to run their business more efficiently. And I think that the use case models right now are, revolve around this stuff. And it would be interesting for me to understand kind of like how you guys, what you think are, is the kind of opening set of those things. If you think of the register as basically being some place where you are monitoring inventory purchases over time, what comes out of those systems, that make them compelling for the small business? And then we'll get to the slightly broader topic of, kind of openness versus, proprietary systems.
I think the world is, to be a little bit simplistic, divided into two categories. There's the hard good, non-perishable goods type of businesses, and then there are services and perishable goods. So for the former, often it boils down to better channel management. And when you connect your point-of-sale device to the cloud, you're now suddenly able to really manage your sales on a at-par basis, whether you're in-store or on a website or even on a mobile website. and really see a holistic view of your business and be able to manage your inventory and manage your pricing and see which customers are coming in and out. That's a sea change, because up to that point, what happens in the store is separate from what happens online. Big merchants are struggling with that. Small merchants have the ability to actually move into a fairly uniform execution across channel much faster with devices that are cloud connected. In the perishable goods or service space, it's all about yield management. Time is the issue here. And being able to understand the patterns and reach people so that you can smooth out your demand curve means huge differences in terms of the profitability of those businesses. And so in that case, the new data is about more about enabling use cases where you're able to sell to people even before they're in your store. And when you do that, you're actually really extending the period of the day when you're servicing consumers, and therefore your store is profitable. So there are two very different use cases there, but in both instances, the connectivity to either other channels or other places really unleashes a lot of opportunity for the small businesses. And it can be done in a prepackaged, simple way, right? When you're a store owner, you don't want to be an IT guy. You just say, okay, give me a simple dashboard. Give me tools that will allow me to manage the business. Take all the complexity of what happens in the piping away from me.
So I think it's, first of all, providing a variety of payment tools. So businesses grow and they diversify, so they may need a mobile solution. They may need something with their iPad. They may need something more durable and for faster line put. So I think having that variety first and foremost allows businesses to grow and morph in the way that works best for them. And I think secondly, when you look at the small and the micro businesses, it's really exciting to provide them analytics that larger companies probably take for granted. But I think it's simple blocking and tackling, like a bakery that closes at 3. And when you show the analytics that their busiest time is 2 to 3, then they stay open another hour and increase sales by 25%. And we've seen that simple analytics free to all of our customers that really helps them, I think, compete in a more effective way, and to take something that was foreign to them or complex or just not available and make it simple and easy to digest and to act upon.
Analytics is always one of those sort of magical creatures we chase at all times. It promises so much for the customer. That said, when we first entered the market with the SMBs, we went and did a little research, and we found out that most of the tablet solutions that were going out to them today, about 50% of them were never actually taken out of the box and set up. They just didn't even have the time to do that. So you have a person here who's kind of like a consumer in their skill set of technology with literally zero time on their hands. And as much as it'd be great to give them really sophisticated analytics, I'll tell you what they told us was the number one feature they wanted. Tell me when my employee is opening my cash drawer up from anywhere I am. I just want to know, I think he's stealing from me. And then we even went up large, like we went to the chains, and we talked to the chains, and they're like, yeah, I want to know if the franchisees are deleting stuff off their databases on the local servers and not paying me my percentage of my money. These were like their top feature requests where, I think people are stealing from me. And probably because people are probably stealing from them. And so, from our perspective, the number one feature is letting them feel like they can go to sleep at night, that they're not being taken for a ride. And the great thing about cloud-based services is you can do a lot of that, right? They can sit there on their phone and look at the data and see everything if you pass it to them. But I think beyond that, even a company like Safeway relies on third parties to put those receipts with the $1 off your hummus, analysis and the big data analysis. So even a company that big needs a third party to do that work for them and pass it back in. I think we can do our customers best if we allow them to plug into those types of systems and let someone else do the analytics and give them a very explicit feature or application, a way they could potentially even make money off that analytics. And pass it right through without really asking them to sort of sort through it or figure it out or figure out how they're going to change their business around it. They're just too busy.
Interesting. Okay, so let's shift gears for a second and let's actually go down the path that you just described. Catalina Marketing is the name of the company that does that stuff, right? So you know, one of the things that that came out of the conversations that I had with you guys in my research into this is that there is there's a funny kind of parallel with Macs and PCs, Android versus iOS in this space, in the sense that there are a number of people who have kind of closed systems and very refined, carefully executed closed systems, and then there are people, like Clover and other people who are trying to run open software platforms, essentially, that things can be plugged into. And I'm really interested, in getting your guys, thoughts on, kind of how this is going to evolve, because to your point, no one can do Catalina Marketing except for Catalina Marketing, right? But the truth is that if you had if you had an app that was plugged into an open platform, it might well be that Catalina Marketing could run a cloud-based service for you. Look at the data that's coming off of your cash register and on the fly, basically, connect to, and produce a printed, a printed register receipt that had that stuff on the back of it. And it was similar to what you and I talked about in terms of plugging the peripherals in. So without causing a fist fight on the panel, what I really am interested in is trying to understand why you guys think that proprietary systems, are the better way to go versus open systems and systems that allow you to basically effectively kind of hack them in the nicest way possible. And I think actually I'm going to reverse the order and start with Leonard and move back up this way.
Well, I've worked at eBay and Yahoo and Intuit, and I love building consumer products. And there's something great about being able to control every aspect of the experience. You can do everything the way you want to do it and do it a certain way that you feel is right. The big challenge, though, with that, as you think about the business market, is you literally just can't even, you'd have to hire tens of thousands of engineers to do all the thinking and all the things and build a structure that allows them to be that creative and potentially be able to plug into systems out there that you'll never be able to replicate. I mean, if you want to be a small business, you want to plug into something like Yelp, you're not going to build Yelp as well and support that. You're going to think about all the ways you can plug those things together. So our decision early on was a difficult one, but we felt an important one, which was we'd never go direct to the merchants. We actually build our product and work through other folks who sell services to the merchants, and we provide that to them. When we design a feature, we don't design it exactly the way we want. We think of it almost like libraries, almost the way that maybe Android would build their phone systems. We come up with the 10 ways someone might want to plug in a loyalty program, or the 10 ways that someone might want to build out something like the Catalina system that you talked about. And that's how we design. So we try to preserve the best of the consumer world, of the simplicity and the ease of use. But in the end, we look at it and say, what is it that a merchant's going to need to be successful? And if we can't give that to them, they won't put us into their store or their restaurant or their services business. And so that was a decision we made early on. It's definitely a tough one, but we think it's the right way to go.
Great. So I think it's a very interesting question, and Square is certainly open to collaboration. I'd say one of our greatest assets, probably the greatest asset, is our really talented engineers. And those engineers really like sharing. And I think that's part of the openness that we most celebrate. They've contributed over 30 libraries, and they've, I think, been part of over 60. And I think you'll see that continue. It makes them really happy. It encourages them to collaborate, help others, and I think it makes all boats rise. I think in addition to that, we really love any partnership that helps us deliver on the promise to better serve the customer. So anybody who really has that obsession both with design and with providing tools for small businesses that makes commerce basically disappear. And one of those experiences that we think is really special is with our Square Wallet. For those of you that may not know, it's a consumer application that you can download for iOS or Android. And the experience for me, living in San Francisco, is that if I want to go to Cafe Sophie in the morning, my phone is in my pocket, I walk in, I order a cappuccino, quite a good one at that, and say put it on Chuck. The barista now knows my name, I've never touched my phone, the transaction's complete, I have an instant notification of it, and that to me is beautiful commerce, and we'd like to see more of that, and we're committed to making that sort of experience available to as many as possible.
So I'm a little bit like Leonard on this one. I think the world is a broad place, and the laws of large number dictates that no one has the one answer. As a matter of fact, if you read the blogs of the Valley here, how many times a week do you read something that starts with, is so-and-so, fill in the blanks, the next Steve Jobs? There is an obsession with the product that is polished to the nth degree. It works well when you're selling a device. It doesn't work so well when you are implementing services that have to be in many, many different places, including places where the demographics and psychographics and educational scales are very different than in the ivory towers of Silicon Valley. Right? When the guys launched a little service about 20 years ago that allowed you to send messages with 160 characters, with an awful user experience, not knowing if it arrived, where you would pay 10 cents per message against email at the time, which had no limitation, was free, and had a much better user experience, you would think nobody would have ever wanted such an idiotic product. Well, clearly, text messages proved otherwise. And so the point here is, when we try in our infinite wisdom to think of what is right for the consumer, we're most of the time wrong. And so I completely agree with Leonard. The answer is open up. Open up. 3 years ago, when I started at PayPal, we worked on what became X.commerce and the acquisition of Magento. And for us, it was about the importance of creating a vibrant ecosystem. Magento has over 1 million companies around the world that develops extensions to the platform. There's no way. It's not tens of thousands of developers, right? It's millions of developers. No way we can do that. You know, the localization aspects of that, the language, the capacity to fit with the different businesses, to fit with the local regulations, and so on and so on and so on, is absolutely paramount to reaching scale, which really matters. Otherwise, you have a neat little experience that you can find in a couple of stores that are local, but does not really end up being meaningful from a commerce standpoint. So open, and this is where connected matters. Open is really the only way that you can scale, that you can bring some of the benefits of cloud-based services to a broad range of businesses. And the only way to do that is, of course, in very active and broad-ranging partnerships with many, many, many different companies. And that's something that is absolutely core to what we're doing at PayPal.
So, I buy my hammers and nails at an Ace Hardware store down the street from me, and I've gotten to, I've got my own personal focus group, in my neighborhood, and this guy's one of them. And he's got this wand that he has to walk around the office, around his store, and basically, on a pretty regular basis, figure out, how many things he's got left in his inventory, and he hates it, right? He just hates it, right? But he can't not do it because he's got a $100,000 integrated system, as you said, and if he doesn't put that data in there, then it doesn't connect back to, wherever the hell Ace Hardware is out there in the Midwest, and his hammers don't come in, right, at the end of the day, right? And so one of the things I'm really curious about is, kind of how big you guys think the box is going to be, in terms of these systems, because what we're talking about right now, is point of sale systems that, that have to do with things that, to your earlier point, either happen at the cash register, or you're taking the cash register out to them on the floor, but they're not, right now particularly integrated in terms of their attachment points to inventory systems, accounting systems and stuff like that. And I'm curious about whether you guys think that, that the Android or iOS tablet device will wind up becoming, essentially kind of the vessel for the operating system for that business, as opposed to what this guy has to do, which is he's got a terminal at one end of the store, he's got a cash register at the other end of the store, and he's got this wand and he's wandering around basically, scanning everything in the store, or somebody is pretty much all day long.
The answer to that is already in market, right? Look at a company like Erply, for instance. You're pretty familiar with them, right? They're doing inventory management in the cloud. Now, the beauty of that is the instant you do it, you don't not just save manpower, But if your inventory is in the cloud, now, within less than a day, you can set up a website and also sell online. Right? And we have a slew of people that are doing that literally take a mom and pop shop and put them online and therefore grow their sales, within 24 hours. You can do that when you migrate some of the data to the cloud. Then the device is almost irrelevant. As long as you have connectivity and you're basically able to feed to and from the data in the cloud, really the device is irrelevant. How many of you know that about 95% of cash registers today run embedded Windows NT? Right? So standardization of the operating system on cash register happened a long time ago. It's irrelevant to what you're able to build on top of cash registers. So whether it's iOS or Android, there's, to a large extent, who cares? What's going to matter is the richness of services and interconnected services that you're able to do and the ability to exchange data between those services. That's going to happen because you have connected devices to the cloud. And I think on that we'll probably all agree.
One of the exciting things about having millions of customers is that you get a lot of feedback. And if you're good at listening, then your product gets better and better at supporting them. I think you're right that we've already found a better solution for the traditional cash register. And what's exciting for us is the amazing growth of Square Register on tablet. And it's used in so many creative ways. We have one customer that plays music on the register while they're actually transacting. So, I mean, that's a simple example, but I think it just shows that the devices they already have work effectively to run their business. They just need the right software to make it happen. And I think as you add greater utility for inventory, for allowing them, like we do now, to say add bacon, and you can monitor that. My favorite, personally, for adding bacon. But I think that sort of functionality is really great for them. It allows us to support growing businesses that are larger, that may have 15 locations instead of 1, and it helps them run their business more smoothly with the key focus of just moving that line more quickly and serving more customers in a day.
Going back to that small business person who doesn't have very much time, isn't super technically savvy, one of the top issues we'd hear that they'd have is they'd plug in a tablet, they'd have their receipt printer. No matter how much we try to get everyone to sign on screen, there's a whole variety of reasons why they still want to keep receipt printers. Some of them are crazy, but they're quite insistent on it. And all of a sudden the printer's not working. Well, their tablet connected to their neighbor's Wi-Fi, and the printer's connected to their via Ethernet on their local network. And so it's as good as not even being on the same network. They're never going to be able to print. That may seem small and trivial, except in the middle of lunch with a 30-person line. Then it becomes really infuriating for them. The nice thing is the cost of the technology has come down so much. The ability to go work with manufacturers to produce devices that, I mean, if you look at the guts of an Android tablet, we're talking about in the $100 range, right? I mean, it's really getting so low that you can actually start to think about the hardware as well as the software. You can start to pair everything together automatically. You can start taking control of that, not because you want to, not because you're dying to be in the hardware business, but because you know that if you want to be truly plug and play, you need to take that responsibility on. And that said, the example you had of the walking around the store, you kind of have two choices there. Again, if you're open platform, you could allow the person to use their Android, their iPhone, and someone else builds an app that's simply an inventory management app. And the data is just passing back and forth. And maybe you're using the camera, maybe you're using NFC. It's whatever that developer has come up with for this fantastic, world-class inventory management. We may provide an out-of-the-box inventory management system, but we're dying for someone to replace it with better systems. It could be something that's an actual piece of hardware that we provide that automatically pairs and takes care of it. It's, again, it's sort of economics. It's what do they want? Is it important enough that they want to buy something special that takes care of it for them? Or do they just want to take their phone out of their wallet or out of their pocket and just start scanning with it? It should be up to them.
Okay. All right, we've got a couple more minutes here. I'm going to ask one more question that's going to basically kind of lead into this, and then I'm going to assume that there are 3 or 4 people in the audience who have a question. So the next question really is about where all this stuff is going, right? And so what's the evolution of this technology in terms of the SMB space? And the kind of starter for 10 for me was big data, right? So I mean, almost everybody who is competing for SMBs businesses to manage digital marketing marketing services or any types of services for SMBs today, one of the things they say is, you can get all the functionality that a big company has, and we'll bring it down to you, right? And I'm really curious about how you guys think that this is going to evolve, because, I live in San Francisco near a street called Clement Street. If you guys who are in town know it, if not, it's like 30 blocks long. There are like 450 restaurants. I mean, it is this madhouse, of commercial activity. If all those people in that marketplace actually had access to some kind of big data application, they might actually be able to learn a lot about how to, cross customers, cross-sell, understand, big macro patterns in that neighborhood, right? And so I'm curious if you guys climb outside of the box for a second for us, where you think all this stuff really actually, is going to wind up.
I think most small businesses don't have the slightest clue what big data is.
Yeah.
Right. And this is Silicon Valley parlance. What they know is people coming through the door. Are they able to service them in a unique way? Are they able to actively manage what their inventory is? Maybe you recognize trends, easy trends. In order to serve a small business, I agree, you have to make it simple. You have to absolutely make it simple. So we're going to have a lot of enabling technologies, services, platforms, and so on. And around that, you're going to have a bunch of service providers who are going to be in the business of helping those small businesses run their business in an effective way. And yes, the capabilities that used to be that of large merchants are going to percolate down. The way they're going to emerge will be fairly different in terms of the packaging in the instance. But it's all about making it easy for people who are generally cash-strapped, time-strapped. 40% of them die the first year. Just raising the opportunity to make the business viable, right? and simplifying the operations.
Yeah, I think they're looking for where are my customers coming from, where do they live, how do I do compared to competitors? I think those are the things they want to understand, but most importantly to small and micro business or any business is how do I win new customers? So I think we'll focus, and I think others will focus on how to deliver more customers to them, how to reach them, how to speak to them, and I think that'll be the key focus for the smaller businesses.
Yeah, whenever we built sort of big data analytics system like places like eBay, where we have millions of sellers, and you try to think about, here's all this data, let me show you how you compare to your folks in your category, here's all that information. We learned typically was big data doesn't really answer questions for you. Big data actually kind of helps you formulate questions. So it's an interesting challenge because it doesn't steer you down a path. It doesn't tell you what to do with that data. It just simply makes you start to think about, should I be doing something differently? But it's almost always up to that merchant or that seller, that person to kind of chart their own course as to what they want to do with that. I think in the end, you still have to have those think of that brilliant developer who's graduating college right now in his dorm room, and he thinks he's got a brilliant solution for helping an SMB that he's seen down the street. Well, if he decides to build that product today, it can be beautiful, but there's no place to plug it in. Terminals don't plug it in. The big PC-based point-of-sale systems plug it in. Most tablet solutions don't let you plug it in. He's got no channel. And anyone who's ever sold to the SMB market knows it's brutal. And if you're going to be a kid in college, now imagine a day where you can be a kid in college and you come up with this brilliant solution for what to do with that data, how to attract new customers. And all of a sudden there's hundreds of thousands of merchants that can be exposed to that product, that you can try it out by pushing a button and start using it. And now that kid in college has an opportunity to generate not just real customers, but real revenue, and doesn't have to actually focus in on the business side. They just have to focus in on building a great product. I think that's really where we see the future. Whether it's big data or otherwise, you need the application to drive the use of the data.
Okay. Well, we've run out of time. Sorry. I think probably if people have questions, they're going to need to track the individual members of the panel down after the talk. Fascinating conversation. Appreciate it very much. It was very interesting. Thanks.
Thank you.